What's up, everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about a viewer requested topic, all right, and that is concealed carry. Now, it is probably the most cringy and clickbaity thing that gun channels can talk about. There's a lot to talk about, and everybody has their own opinion on it. So I don't run straight at this topic for a couple reasons. One being that it quickly devolves into the topic of gunfighting, all right? And I would not consider myself an expert on the martial art of gunfighting, and that is what you're getting into if you're engaging in concealed carry. If you have to use this thing, that is the martial art of gunfighting. There are plenty of people with much more experience and developed curriculum, tactics, and techniques around all that stuff. You should seek information from them if you want to talk about and get information about gunfighting. All right, global war on terror has been going on for over 20 years. Lots of dudes have lots of experience with plainclothes gunfighting, and I would defer you to one of the several that there are. All right, but as someone who is passionate about guns, I'm in the industry that caters to the concealed carry market. I engage in it myself. So as a shooter who does also concealed carry, I consider those things separate. All right, participation in the shooting sports is separate from concealed carry. I have my thoughts and my experience on it. I've been doing it for over 15 years at this point. The other reason I don't run straight at it is because it is an incredibly dense and just massive topic to unpack. There's all kinds of stuff that we could talk about. I've attempted to film this video actually a couple times, just kind of trying to lay a starting point from which to talk from. And so before we get into the specifics of gear and stuff like that, and when you look at anybody's perspective on any of this stuff, you kind of have to look at the lens through which they're looking at concealed carry, because it's different for everybody. What works for somebody might not work for you. All right, so I feel like if you care about what I think about concealed carry, you have to look at it through the lens that I look at it through. And I feel like I have to explain a few things first before we can talk about the stuff. All right. And so first things first, aside from the obvious, all right, in concealed carry, I really consider there to be three types of environments that I carry in or could carry in. All right, a lot of people look at it as very, I mean, like anything these days, they look at it black white, like concealed, not concealed, concealed, not concealed. To me, concealment has levels. All right, and so how hard am I trying to hide the weapon, and to what lengths am I willing to go to do that? Also keeping in mind that the more concealed it is, probably the harder it is to get to and deploy. All right, so the whole reason for having it is so that you can use it. Otherwise, it's basically a lucky rabbit's foot. So you're kind of constantly on the continuum of how concealed do I want to be versus how accessible do I want it to be. The more accessible it is, the more easy it might be for someone to see it or know that you have it. And so I kind of break concealment. I don't look at it as concealed, not concealed. I kind of think of the environment I'm going into in three different levels, and then I decide from there what kind of equipment I'm going to use. So base level concealment, I would say, is a permissive environment. I would then escalate into sensitive environments and non-permissive environments. I realize those are military terms. I'm using them differently just for concept's sake. All right, to me, a permissive environment is your everyday life. All right, you on a Saturday going to the lumber yard. All right, You're in your house, you're going to a place where, basic dude stuff, just you're not really going to see much resistance, even if you open carried in that environment. Now, I predominantly have lived in the upper Midwest. In the upper Midwest, it is not socially acceptable to open carry a handgun. It's just not. It's legal in a lot of places. I even have, but it's not necessarily socially acceptable. You may encounter unwanted attention if you were to open carry. So in a permissive environment, I kind of look at concealed carry as like on the same level as putting on a shirt, right? Like I could go probably into a lumberyard without a shirt on. All right. They might not appreciate that. Would they ask me to leave? I don't know. But there's lots of places in and around, a public space. You don't have to have a shirt on if you don't want to. I just don't want to put my body out there, all right? So I put a shirt on, right? Helps me blend in with everybody else, all right? Certain types of environments, if you only have a t-shirt on when everyone else has coats on, you stand out, all right? So, concealment in a permissive environment is really just covering things up, keeping things private, all right? I don't necessarily open carry my wallet either, all right? I have it on me. I just don't make it apparently obvious where it is. Same kind of thing, all right? Permissive environment. Little, if any, resistance and no consequences for not concealing, all right? A sensitive environment, all right? That would be a level up in concealment. A sensitive environment, I would say there are no legal or painful consequences for not concealing. There are social ones though, all right? So I would consider a sensitive environment to be somewhere where you're going to get a little bit more scrutiny. You might be in mixed political company where they might not be open or accepting of your choice. And you know what? As long as they don't know, what they know don't hurt them. So sensitive environments. So this is filmed around about Christmas time, right? I think of Christmas time as a time where I go into a lot of sensitive environments. There are people I'm not normally around, maybe don't know very well, places I don't normally go, clothes I don't normally wear, this type of thing, all right? So a lot of like holiday gatherings I think of as sensitive environments, right? These are people who are, not necessarily harmful, but they're going to look you up and down and think, oh, you've lost weight. All right. They're scrutinizing you a little bit more than the average stranger who is just conditioned white and can't see 5 feet in front of their face. You can get away with a lot of stuff in front of those people. People who know you, know what you look like, you have to try harder to hide something from them. Other examples of a sensitive environment, maybe a workplace. All right. Certain workplaces, if your political leanings are known, that has career consequences for you. All right. So, maybe you just don't want it known that you're a gun guy at your place of business. All right. That would be a sensitive work environment. Not necessarily that, you would get walked out, but you might get unwanted attention if you were discovered. Churches would be another one. Perfectly legal to carry in a church, most places, probably even some good reasons too. Some of the active shooters we've seen in recent years. But also, you might also get unwanted attention if it was discovered that you have a gun. So that might be a place to go another level in concealment if you're going to go into that environment with a gun. Not saying you should or shouldn't, but if that's a decision you make, maybe step up the concealment a little bit. Non-permissive environment. That is an environment where you are either not supposed to have it or there are real consequences for getting caught. All right. An employment environment where you'll get fired. Places where you're legally not supposed to have it. A hospital might be one, right? A lot of hospitals I've been in, they're very clearly posted. They have a lot of security. If you're discovered in that environment, would not be good. Pretty much anything short of actually having to walk through a metal detector where everything says no, thou shalt not have, and for whatever reason you made your adult decision to disregard that policy, that's a non-permissive environment. All right, so not just critique, there is real pain for getting caught in that environment. Step it up a level in concealment. As of this recording, I pretty much exist in a permissive environment. All right, so concealed is concealed. Tend to hide it, not really put it out there for people. I obviously work in a place that's pretty pro 2A. Concealed carry is something we openly talk about in that environment. So like, I'm not going to get walked out if someone discovers I'm carrying at work. It's actually specifically allowed. At the same time, in that same environment, open carrying, it would not be correct. It would just be a little bit off. If I just walked into a sales meeting open carrying, people would think that odd. And so I pretty much operate in a permissive environment as I record this today. However, I think, as life goes, there are chapters and seasons of life. I think concealed carry, if you do it long enough, is going to have those seasons too. Throughout the seasons of my life, I have existed in all of those three types of environments, and concealed carried in them. And had to adapt. I have had jobs where it was against company policy to carry, and if they caught you, you'd be fired. On the complete opposite end of the spectrum, I've had jobs where you were required to open carry. All right, so I've been on both extremes and everywhere in between, and you just kind of have to weigh that against what your environment looks like and how determined you are to be prepared for stuff. Also, as we're laying foundation, what should you carry? That's a lot of people are trying to get down to, and specifically they're talking about guns, right? They want to know, well, what gun should I get to carry, and what holster should I use to carry it? It depends on you. How would you decide this? I would say carry the biggest gun that you can and will incorporate into your life and have at hand on a regular basis. Now, that's a pretty standardized thing to say. What do you mean? Okay, well, let's use an analogy, all right? So instead of a gun and a holster, let's talk about a first aid kit, right? First aid kit. A lot of people would have a first aid kit for a lot of the same reasons or similar inspired reasons that they would have a concealed carry handgun, right? In case of emergency, I have these things to preserve life, all right? And so, first aid kit is not a first aid kit. There are first aid kits that fit on people's ankles. There are first aid kits that roll around and have flashing lights on them called ambulances. And there's everything in between, all right? So you trying to be prepared for what you might encounter, what are you gonna carry in a first aid kit? Now here's one that I use. I've been using this one for quite a while, all right? And I think it's got a lot of stuff in it, right? Pretty comprehensive for like the big things that you would need, and you would need some stuff to preserve life if until help arrives. All right. So here's my first aid kit. I carry this in my truck, my personal vehicle, just in cases. Because let's be honest, in today's mechanized world, you are far more likely to come across a car accident than you are a carjacking. I just think you are. All right. And so I carry this in my vehicle, and if I'm going on a road trip, which I do quite a bit for work, and when I do that, I'm not using my personal vehicle, so this will go from my personal vehicle into the vehicle that I'm road tripping in and back and forth. all right, because I believe in having this around. I am certified, trained, can use everything in here, all right? First aid is not my thing. I don't really get off on medical. You go to a lot of these training classes, they try to work in some medical because everyone should have one, and they're right, but I'm not interested in medical, all right? I know enough. I'm comfortable with what I know. I'm comfortable that I know how to use everything in here. And that's that. But just in case of emergency, I know. But I don't watch videos on medical. I don't really I don't go out of my way to take classes on emergency medical. It's just not interesting to me. Now, my significant other is a highly credentialed nurse. All right. A lot of people in my life are or have been EMTs. They are exponentially more trained, certified, and qualified than I am in the world of emergency medicine. And so they realistically should probably carry more than this, right? Like, they're in a position like they could really do a lot of good if they had access to more, so it probably behooves them to carry more. Now, I don't know how to do what they know how to do, so I am not really willing to carry those types of kits. The same place I bought this kit from, there's 2 or 3 larger than this. I'm not really willing to accommodate that in my life. It takes up too much space in my truck. It's heavy, it's bulky, and I'm not willing. That's just how it is, right, wrong, or otherwise. More credentialed individuals, especially like EMTs, who are in some jurisdictions, they're required to stop, at a car accident. Behooves them to. My brother is an ER doctor. My brother carries a lot more emergency medical equipment than I do, but he knows how to use it. All right. So transitioning back to the guns. All right. I know a lot about how to use handguns. So if I'm in a situation where I might need to use a handgun, my skill set is better applied through a larger, more capable handgun. As handguns get smaller, they get harder to shoot, less effective, less reliable. So I try to have the biggest handgun that I can reasonably accommodate into wherever I'm going. Now, little story for you, all right? This happened just honestly, it sounds like something I made up, but this actually happened a couple weeks ago, all right? I was on my way home. I came across a fairly serious car accident, all right? T-bone, quarter panel to quarter panel. Now, in that particular instance, everyone was okay. All right, but I stopped. Hey, are you okay? Oh, blah, blah, yep. Called everybody. They're on the way. Good. All right. When I did that, for whatever reason, after the last road trip, didn't have my kit. All right. It was only 2 miles away. But as I rolled away from that accident, I was like, holy cow, what if one of those guys had been bleeding out and needed a tourniquet? Didn't have one. Couldn't have, even though I was there and I had the know-how, I couldn't have helped them, all right? Passed up a perfectly good opportunity to be Superman. It was 2 miles away. Might as well have been 200, all right? So when people talk about handguns, the easiest answer is carry the biggest one you can. But you got to add the caveat of the biggest one you're willing to accommodate in your life so that you actually have it when something comes along. All right. So what guns would I carry? I would carry the biggest ones you can accommodate into your life. All right. Now, comfortably, that's another term, right? A lot of terms. You watch any amount of stuff on concealed carry. You talk about handguns, you talk about the holsters, you talk about the whatever. People talk about comfort. Why? Because people predominantly are soft pussies. All right. It's pretty common in the world that people will not really push. They won't even get close to a level of discomfort if they can avoid it. All right. Example, working out, physical fitness, right? There are levels to physical fitness. You have taking your dog for a walk so that they can go potty, to world champion weightlifters, all right? Everything in between, all right? A lot of people want the benefits of working out, right? They want to be in better shape. They want to live longer. They want to get the discount on their health insurance, all right? So lots of people are willing to work out as long as they don't have to push to a level of discomfort. So they will power walk, they'll do ellipticals, they'll walk outside, they'll maybe lift some weights, like some light dumbbell stuff, maybe do some push-ups, all right? And you can do some of that stuff and get some of the benefits. If someone tries to take your wallet and you have one of these, odds are in your favor. But there's also a level in physical fitness where you push past comfort, right? Your body, your mind is naturally programmed to keep you in a place of comfort, right? That's why you eat more than you're supposed to, or you're tempted to eat more than you're supposed to. Your body is programmed for you to prepare for famine, all right? But if you don't want to carry preparation for famine on and around your abdomen area, you have to go against that. All right, so there is a level of physical exertion where the real fitness starts, right? Where real weightlifting starts, where real cardio starts. That is pushing yourself past your comfort threshold to get a benefit. You look at some of the stuff that I do, people look at guns I carry, holsters I use to carry it, and the way I carry it a lot of times, like, is that comfortable? And on one hand, it's like, yeah, it is. But on the other hand, I've pushed through, and doing this for over 15 years, I've pushed through that comfort phase. It's like, well, I'm kind of numb to some of the discomfort. There's just kind of certain equipment I want to have around, right? Back to my first aid example. I'm not tourniquet guy, but I'm kind of turning into tourniquet guy, all right? I think I might just have a few more tourniquets closer at hand in my life based on that experience in the car accident, all right? Same thing here. If I'm encountered with a situation where I need to use deadly force to defend my life, there's a certain amount of gun that I want to have around, and I'm willing to accommodate it. And I've adapted some of this equipment to have that around. And so, same thing, that runner's high, when you talk about a runner's high, there's a threshold they can push past. It's like, well, I've decided there's a certain level of equipment I want to have around, and I'm willing to accommodate it. A lot of people aren't necessarily, all right? So a lot of times when they're like, oh, well, I want to conceal carry, and they start talking about, well, what's the smallest gun that I can get away with, and will it be comfortable? It may or may not be comfortable, but is it also effective for its purpose? Same thing here, like this particular rig is set up for pocket carry. Is pocket carry something that I do on a regular basis? No, it's not. The guns that fit in there aren't particularly good at shooting and being guns. And pocket carry has a lot of drawbacks, but certain types of attire, certain types of environments, it's pretty low profile and you can do it. So it is something that I have around as an option. It's not something I do terribly often, and I wouldn't recommend anybody do it as a primary method unless their situation is significantly different than mine. Another temptation would be shoulder rigs, right? A lot of people go right to, especially if you watch any amount of cop TV in the 90s, shoulder rig. They'd be like, oh, well, I'll just strap it on and then I can just have all this stuff and it'll be awesome. Well, have you worn a backpack for any amount of time? Because that's essentially what you're doing. All right. This particular handgun's about 2 pounds loaded. There's probably another 2 pounds of ammo to balance it out. That is on your shoulders all the time. Would I wear a shoulder rig on the daily? No, would not. However, I have one. And for certain applications, it is pretty good. Say long drives. All right. If you drive a lot, if you're a professional truck driver, I've been a professional truck driver. If you're a professional truck driver, these rigs are pretty sweet because, you know, things on or about your waist and your waist is bent all the time. It's more comfortable. Also, if you're right-handed, probably more advantageous for carjackings because you're oriented straight towards the most plausible angle your threat will come at you from. All right. But that's highly situational that I would use something like that. And so you kind of have to look at that through the lens of your life and where you're going. Now, foundationally, I'll say the most important piece of equipment to this whole thing is the least sexy. All right. The most important piece of a concealed carry system is the belt. All right. This is the part that people cheap out on the most. Don't get respect on, pay the least amount of attention to. The belt makes or breaks the whole thing. All right. So use a good belt. Now, on a strong side belt, the thing you got to remember is, like, when people think about concealed carry, they think about, oh yeah, I'm going to have a holster. I'm going to strap it on my belt. I'm going to wear it like this. Now, when you wear a belt like that, there's a significant amount of weight over here. The reason you want a good gun belt is because you're going to support all the weight that's on here. And instead of just cinching it to your body, cutting off all the circulation and ultimately becoming painful, a good gun belt is super stiff. Like you see, I can't fold this in half, like as I try to crunch it. All right. It doesn't, if I were to fold it in half, it doesn't want to. All right. It's very stiff. All right. And the reason that is because it will, when it's at the right tension, it will spread the weight around the whole circumference of the belt and it will sit on your hips instead of needing to be super tight. All right. So you can carry more weight with less tension on a good gun belt. All right. Now, there are two types of gun belts that I would proposition you are really good that I've been using for several years. This one is a Next belt. All right. This particular one, we had some made at work. I believe this is the appendix version of the buckle. I have other ones as well, but essentially it's a super stiff belt. There's it's kind of a ratchet system that it tensions on, and it's kind of almost infinitely adjustable. So you can hear it kind of click and then it's locked. All right. Again, we talked about seasons of life. All right. Your waistline probably has seasons of life too. So you have a little bit more finite adjustability in exactly how big this belt is. And then throughout the day, if say you're standing up for a long time, you want it super tight, but then you're going to go on a drive, it's getting uncomfortable, you can let some slack out. All right. So you can kind of infinitely adjust it through seasons of life or throughout the day. Strong side belt, I really like the Next belt. All right. Best money you can spend if you're carrying strong side. Now, as of late, I've been doing a lot of appendix carry. That is its own video. All right. But a product that I really discovered in appendix carrying more, I found my way to appendix carry through an injury. And so this video is already getting pretty long, so we'll talk about that another day. But in appendix carry, best money you can spend is the Hunter Constantine carry belt. All right. So again, super rigid in the front. I believe there's actually a metal shank in there that gives it its rigidity. What's new about this though is that it's stretchy in the back. Now, I'll admit, I tried it the first time because Hunter's a cool dude, and I respect that he, you know, had an idea, started a business, and brought it to market, and was so he's like, dude, I make the best appendix carry belt ever. Yeah, I've heard that before. But you know, and he explained to me, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll try it. And he did send me one. He gave me one for free. And this thing is a game changer. How much did I like it? I bought one in every color. And when he comes out with another color, buy another one. All right. These things are great. Now, the thing about appendix carry that takes some dialing in is that the tension on the belt is super important. And it's not the same as strong side in that we're trying to get this thing to like sit, because when a strong side rig is on your hip, it is kind of outside of your body. Like there, you have a hard bone here and it's on the outside. So we kind of have to like strap this thing on for the ride. In appendix carry, it's a little bit more tucked into a crevasse, if you will. And the belt is just kind of supporting it there. And so we just need enough tension to kind of hold it there. We don't have to hold it up as much. And the amount of tension it takes to do that varies. So what I would find when I was appendix carrying with a next belt is, for example, if this is how I wanted it while I was sitting down, this is how much I wanted it when I was standing up. And so like finding the right amount of adjustment was kind of a thing. And then also just kind of, eventually it would kind of get on like kind of like the back side of my hips. I would get this kind of hot spot, is what Hunter calls it. But, you know, it's kind of a pinch point, a pain point. I didn't really like how much tension there was on the belt to facilitate that. With an elastic, with a stretchy belt, it still carries the weight. Once you have it set correctly. It carries the weight, but it flexes with you quite a bit and throughout your day to day. So while I would say, you know, before this injury that I'm talking about, I would say I was a strong side carry guy. You know, I used a rig like this inside the waistband holster, and moved away from it during that period of time where I was on crutches and felt the need or a better application for appendix carry. When I actually could go back to strong side, I actually found that I didn't prefer it anymore. And more often than not, given the choice, I actually took it off to make this video, but this appendix rig is usually what I wear, or something like this. It is the most comfortable. Now, if you just go out and like, oh, well, he says appendix is the most comfortable, I'm going to go out and try that. Takes some effort, some learning, some trial and error to find an appendix rig that works for you. All right. So as much as I like this rig and as much as I like this rig, I don't particularly like this rig. All right. And like concealment wise, this one doesn't necessarily work for me as good. It doesn't make this a bad holster. It just doesn't work very well for me. This particular holster doesn't really work very well for me anymore. I use this a lot as a strong side holster, but as an appendix holster, it doesn't really work very well for me. But given the choice, the most comfortable appendix rig I have is that one right there. All right. Full size steel 1911 45 ACP for all you keeping score at home with a light. All right. And this is a Tenacore. Tenacore, I think they call it the Velo 4. All right. But given the choice, this is the most comfortable, most concealable rig that I have. Now that doesn't make a lot of sense because that's a heavy, big gun. Well, body style wise, the longer it is, the more it lays flat. And then the way they design this holster tucks the butt in on my particular body style. So on the daily, just for those wondering, right now my go-to rig is this one, and a close second being this one. Now there are some environments where a little bit more a shorter butt is easier to conceal, so have started using a little bit more of these. But throughout my carry life, I pretty much have been using rigs like these, or guns like these, and then found rigs to accommodate them. Most recently, that has been appendix rigs. But that's foundational concepts on how I look at concealed carry. All right, so if we make subsequent videos about more equipment, you got to understand that's the lens I'm looking at it through. But if you sat down watching a video to get some equipment recommendations, don't skimp on a belt. All right, next belt or the Hunter Constantine carry belt, these are the two most important pieces of the whole thing. And if you spend money on them, it's hard to spend money on them because they are kind of expensive. But like most things in life, if you make a good investment in good equipment, it will last you a long time. These two belts are the most important part of any carry system that I've found to date, and everything else is secondary from there. So that's how I look at concealed carry. Get you a good belt. The other stuff is a long enough conversation that it warrants its own video. So if you're interested in more concealed carry content, get down in the comments below. Let me know what your questions are, what you're curious about, and we'll see you next time.